which is what I'd use, but still, you gotta get the ball right. You gotta know when you're at this end. Ball's gotta be to that end.
Is it up over there? She watching?
Use a hard pipe. Hard pipe. Has a half-inch hole just in
All
it.
right. You guys don't laugh.
Put some holes down.
All right, go ahead and call this workshop to order. First item is a roll call.
Alderman Skinner,
Here.
Alderman Mills,
Here.
Alderman Knox,
Here.
Alderman Cleaver,
Here.
Alderman Bass, Alderman Arnold.
Here.
There is a quorum.
All right. Next item is new business. First item is Great Valley Food Trucks Friday's liquor license approval for Iron Kettle.
So Iron Kettle presented a caterer's license application to basically take over the pavilion on several of the Food Truck Friday nights that are behind the pavilion. And the area they'd like to set up in is under the pavilion in the rectangle area, not the stages, but the rectangle. They would serve just kind of like the beer garden does. They would serve out of the window, and they do plan to fence off that entire rectangle. I'm not sure where the entrances will be at this point, but they will put the signs on entrance, exit saying no alcohol beyond this point. So we are asking, or they are asking for approval for those various nights. It's for the ones in June and July. I don't think there were August dates on there, were there?
It might have been the last one.
August 12th, probably. I think there's only one in
Okay.
August beyond the
Okay.
1st.
I'm sorry, I left the application in there with the dates. So we would look for approval tonight, or a motion to approve the caterer's license for that, to sell on city property, I'm sorry.
And the reason for that's because the state and the county require us to offer a letter first to them so they can approve it. So, correct? Am I understanding that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, is there any type of rule or requirements on having law enforcement present for like an event like that with alcohol being served?
I don't think there's any, I mean, I know for the fair we have, but
Yeah, and that was more of a
Required, we
timing,
just
yeah,
do
that was
that.
more of a time of day thing with this ending at what, 8? Is what, 8:30? Because the concern with the fair and part of that agreement on that end of it was the fact that it goes until
yeah.
whenever.
Yeah, this
8
is
at
like
night.
8, so,
And I plan on stopping sale right around. I'm not gonna be here till midnight.
yeah.
It's gonna be with food trucks right
Because
around.
it tends to die off right there at end time, so people don't tend to hang around.
Okay. Do we offer that up for overtime for our officers to attend events like that, or no?
I mean, at this point, I don't think we haven't talked about doing anything like that
Okay.
for any event during the day, but
Work the event itself.
Yeah, just work the event itself. I mean, it's obviously a lot of people in one place, and just a thought.
yeah, I mean, to this point, we haven't had any discussions about it, but
Yeah.
honestly, I think this will be the first of its kind.
That's all I got.
Anyone else have any?
Was the park board asked what their opinion was on this?
I don't think that, because that's not, the pavilion isn't actually doesn't actually fall into the park, correct? Am I right on that?
It's considered, basically, this whole tract of land all the way to the east is city, and the tract to the south from Maine all the way back is designated park.
So anything that goes over that side we do, but this we typically haven't because it's considered city property.
Didn't want them being left out if they should be involved.
I mean, they realize that, correct? I mean, the park board.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a source of debate over the years, but
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
now they'll be serving through the window.
that-
Okay, and what dates were these again? Fridays in June and July?
When were you looking at starting?
Getting the letter back from the state, then coming to you guys might mean I can't do basically every Friday except for the firsts. The first Fridays are downtown, so the other ones. Because I didn't know if we were bringing music back to play sometime.
No, we hadn't. No, there won't be no music this year. So
So just every Friday except for those in June and July, barring when I can get, because I gotta take your letter, then get it to the state, and then come back and then get approval down. So I might miss the first June.
So this is really just for the letter giving permission to do it, and then we still have to approve the actual license itself, correct? Is how that works? or-
With the caterers licenses, they don't typically have to go through the Board of Aldermen with the
Okay.
code update as of last fall.
Okay, so it's gonna
However,
be-
since this is on city property and would be liquor on city property, that's why we're asking for permission. Part of the caterer's license application requires written authorization from the property owner. In this case, the city is the property owner, which means you all would make that decision, if
So this is
that's
the only
okay.
time you actually have to come
Yeah.
to us then?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm assuming certain amounts of insurance are provided by the
The-
caterer.
The Food Truck Fridays, I know in the past had insurance.
We have insurance, yes.
And that is what the
But we,
event.
I don't know, Yep.
My insurance names the city as.
Secondary.
Additional.
Certificate
Yeah.
holder.
Yeah. And they said, my insurance said that was good enough to allow me to pour at last fair. And they said because we're on city property and we're naming the city, it was fine, is what my insurance said.
Do we have any other questions?
No.
So what we just need, motion to approve the
Yes.
letter or whatever.
Approve authorization to sell on city property, which we will do the letter as part of that.
Alright. I'll entertain a motion then to authorize.
So moved.
Motion from Alderman Knox, to have a second.
A second.
Second, Alderman Skinner. Any additional discussion? Alright. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Alright. Thank you. Alright, next item on our new business is Mayor Pro Tem appointment. And I'll just kind of tell you my philosophy on this. I know in the past, some people the mayor like to actually make the appointment. Well, I like it to come from the board itself because I feel that, this is an individual that would represent you guys in my absence. So I feel that appointment should come from you. I think it can happen either way, but I just like to do it this way. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion then from someone to appoint someone mayor pro tem, and we'll go from there.
Motion for Alderman Cleaver.
Okay. I got a motion from Alderman Mills to appoint Alderman Cleaver as mayor pro tem.
Second.
Second, Alderman Knox. Any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, that'll be it. All right, next item in our new business is goal setting session. All right, are you up and running over there, Teresa? Okay, so my thought behind this was, before the election, I came up with, goals and kind of, then after the election, kind of taxed the staff with kind of a plan for things I wanted moving forward. I thought, well, you know what, it's not just, I'm not the only one here, so I'm not the whole, what we want to accomplish, goals we want to set, doesn't just need to come from me. I mean, that needs to come from the entire board. And we have, I know you guys, the previous board did some goal setting last year. With that though, we have 2 new, aldermen on, and I just kind of wanted to hear what everyone's thoughts were on what they'd like to see accomplished, if there's specific needs in each of your wards that you think we need to, be looking at and addressing and coming up with a plan for. I mean, this isn't anything to say, hey, we're gonna, get this stuff done immediately. Maybe something comes up, we do, but a lot of it is just, things to be looking at for, and that's kind of what I did with staff on mine too. So I can go through my list kind of at the end, and I know staff is here and they can address some of them, and some of them they'll probably have to look into. We do have, Teresa has the live feed going, so we did post it that if someone hears something or if there's a question or a need that they see, they can post it on the video live, and if it fits into the conversation we're having at that moment, she'll let us know. If not, we can kind of review those at the end. And some of those, if you are making comments or questions, some of those we'll try to answer at the end. Some of those we may have to get back to you on. I'm looking at the camera because I'm assuming that's the camera people are looking at me at, right? So I feel like I'm talking to people out there. So do we have anybody actually watching right now?
A couple.
What?
Couple.
All right. So,
Is this YouTube live?
yeah. So for those of you out there joining us, thank you for taking the time. So
Mayor, one thing I would like to add is just when anybody is speaking, just make sure that you are close enough. You can tell when your voice is picking up, since we are trying to do it live, just to make sure that that's, the audio for it works well enough for anybody watching.
so for all that is the, do I need to pick on somebody to go first? There's just somebody who wants to go first. Okay.
One thing I'd like to see us start looking to is looking back at taking care of Old Town. You know, it was set up to do the streets, the drainage, the curbs, whatnot, and that money got taken away for our portion here for the interstate, which was a wise move, great move to do. But I think now we need to start kind of putting that in the works again.
So probably in particular, you're looking at like Front Street, 'cause I think the Front Street was the big one that the money got taken from to improve the.
Front Street and Walnut, and there's a section, I think it's the 400 block of Front Street, that there's a 4-foot wide piece of pavement that's starting to just slough off into the ditch for about 50, 60 feet. So it won't be long, it'll be in the ditch.
Do we still have, I know we had, at one point, we had some drainage issues coming off the tracks back there. Do we still have those?
Well, I think one of the, and Mark, you could step in, but it was at, was it Elizabeth in front? Is where we did quite a bit of work this past year. Because there was a lot of backup happening there, that lot on the, I guess be the southwest corner of that intersection there. On that
We had
part
some
south
on
of the
Cannon.
tracks.
Well, I get the cannons get taken care of when they put all that stuff in down.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know that we've really had any complaints on that ever since we did the Main Street improvements. I mean, water does flow there,
Yeah.
obviously, but it stayed within the parameters of where it was designed to go.
Gets up close, but it hasn't made it out yet.
Not yet.
So,
Well, yeah,
since
what
I
makes
run
the turn, yeah.
Yeah.
right at my house, so.
Yeah. So if it didn't make it out earlier today, it was coming down pretty good, so.
Yeah, I think the closest I've ever seen, it's about, I don't know, maybe a foot from the pavement.
And I guess to your comment, Alderman Knox, that is, the Front Street section is the next phase of the downtown improvements, and that is something that we've had our city engineer go back and try to update that estimate on there as they're working on the capital improvements plan for this next, I guess it'd be the 2023 calendar year, but you guys will see that. I know it goes to, I believe, P&Z this month, and then we'll come to the board after that, but those projects are still in there, and definitely know that's something that needs to be done.
Great.
Changing words a little bit, but is Whitestone on that one?
Yes, it needs to be if it's not. That's what I.
Because we actually, because you guys looked at Whitestone this year, didn't you? Didn't it start failing worse than we thought
Yeah, you'll see it on the CIP.
for this? Okay, I would make
Yeah.
sure it's coming up.
I think it was like a
the
year or
list.
two down, further
I
down the road.
don't know which list it's on, but you'll see it on the list come
That was
before
on,
you
okay.
in the CIP, which year it's on. I just can't tell you offhand.
When I reviewed it, I think it was at least a year, if not 2 years further down the line, but I received a lot of concern from the neighbors in that block about the street and the condition. And personally, when I drove up and down it, yes, they have a valid complaint there. Just don't know where budgetarily it could be worked into the system, but
The nice thing is because of the commitment by the board each year, the additional funding that we've been getting with the road program, we've been able to move streets up in the program. So you'll see streets get moved up in the CIP program. In fact, this year, we were able to move up what was in the CIP from last year, 2023, up to 2022. So you'll see as the CIP comes before you what was programmed for 2024, you'll see now in 2023. So I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you for sure where it is, but you'll see that soon, cut before you. And we can always make changes to that as well. But as you know, we use the pavement condition index as our study and guide as well as, as we review streets based on input that we get from citizens as well.
If we move forward with the curbs and drainage and all that, we had signed right-of-ways from everybody before. Do we have to jump back through that, or do those still hang in there?
I think those were only good for a certain period of
Yeah, I
time,
think
weren't they?
it depends on each one, but a lot of those I think we'll have to go back and do again. I know at least I think the temporary ones for sure had a time limit. And that gets you into that tough spot too, with, even if they technically are still good, like ownership could have changed since then, and then you're walking in, taking out people's trees and things like that, and they don't, it's news to them because they weren't the owner back then. So I think that, I mean, that is gonna be one of the costs of extending it, is it really comes down to was there a permanent easement or was there a temporary easement? Because if it's permanent, then it's no
Right.
different than any of the other easements that we all have in our yards now, but the temporary side, I think, is something that you have to go back and take another look at.
Okay.
Well, Ward 1, of course, I'd like to see, obviously the continuation of the sidewalks and street improvements. Clover Park, some type of upgrade or maybe little improvements there. I know we got an old park bench and some old swing sets and some things there that I'd like to see if there's a possibility of maybe updating, improving that park there a little bit, especially, I know it's been in our little news lately, but, so like see if there's something we could do there. And then, I know there on Ryan Road, the kids cross the street, go to the middle school, and there's, I guess, person that, stops traffic and does that. Maybe this is a school thing, but, like a crosswalk, kind of like what, maybe we have downtown here. And I know we, at the high school, a thought of, maybe seeing what entails, and maybe that's a school. But, so it's kind of my thoughts for Ward 1. And then obviously citywide, it's obviously the continuation, make sure we budget, and the extra for the streets and the sidewalks, continue that. Obviously to see the revitalization of downtown, continue to move forward, with that. And, obviously keeping the city and police department and everybody fully staffed as much as possible. And obviously, continue to attract new businesses, and obviously keeping the businesses that we have, and, what does that look like, and what do we need to kind of do to do that? So, it's kind of the main, obviously, and then maintain our ball fields and parks, continue with that. So it's kind of my focus looking at
Shannon,
for the
how
year.
much space do we have there at Clover Park? Is there much there we can do some stuff with?
I mean, it's one of our neighborhood parks, which we have 4 of, and generally we kind of took ownership of that when developer donated, because it's basically space that couldn't be developed. So we're always careful on what we do there, because we know that generally those parks only service those people that live around them. They're not big enough to put in a parking lot, to put in restrooms. So then you're kind of faced with the dilemma of how much do we invest in these parks when they're really only target a small, part of the community, and that's those that live adjacent to it. So Clover's the bigger one of the 3 that we have, but again, it's kind of one of those things where we want to make sure we keep them maintained, but we got to be careful with the limited budget on what we invest in and what we don't.
So I know it's seems like, I guess maybe it's stayed busy all this time. It seems like it's seeing some more, use here lately. And I think a lot of it is, over in Ward 1, again, really our only big park is, Armstrong, and it's difficult for a lot of the kids in Ward 1 to get there. I mean, I know my daughter can tell you stories out there about they're turning the creek, the new trail along the creek there. I think that's a hot the swimming spot I'm hearing now inside
Yeah.
the creek.
Well, we've had kids swimming in there.
And
Ever since-
are they jumping off the bridge or the rocks, Harper?
Yeah, if they jump
Sorry.
off the bridge, they're gonna break a leg.
Yeah, that's what,
So there's an elevated sewer pipe that goes below the bridge that's only a couple of feet off the surface of the water.
okay, so
But, yeah.
They jump off
But
of-
ever since the high school was built there and Snybar was put in, there's kids been back in that creek for decades. Fishing, swimming,
there's no fish in that thing, is there?
you'll see kids down there fishing too.
It's not called catching.
Yeah.
That's all they act of throwing the pole in.
Well, I do think one of the exciting things too that we've never, well, I don't think we've ever had one, is a Parks Master Plan, and that's one of the things that we have the requests out for now. And a lot of what the work that goes into that is kind of identifying, current and future needs for park facilities.
Yeah,
Because to this point, it's a portion of the comp plan, but it's never been resources that had never been dedicated to a standalone plan to address that kind of thing, or to outline the needs.
well, and just kind of maybe updating some of the equipment if we can budget for that. Because like I said, that one park bench where you sit and eat, is very old and,
Right.
compared to what, obviously we have the nice ones here. But swing sets are looking old. I don't know when the last time the mulch was replaced, under the
It
swing
was-
sets, things like that. And
Yeah.
maybe even an update of the swing sets itself. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's got a volleyball net there and stuff and coming apart a little bit. But, I know we don't want to get restroom, nothing like that, but just update maybe even kind of what's there, maybe improve the area a little bit, what's there for the kids.
Yep.
So,
The one thing that I had been approached on it was maybe one of the solar lights like we have around the parking lot over at Butterfly Trail. A couple pole lights out there. One, it makes it visible, so maybe there's less stuff being done that we don't want to be done back there. And it makes it easier for people to see when there's somebody down there and how many and so forth. I don't know what the cost for the solar lights are, but at least it's something you put it in and the sun
Is
takes
it-
care
is
of that.
Is there any light in there at all right now?
Just what comes off somebody's back porch.
And that's one of the dilemmas that we have, not only with our parks, but with our trails as well as too, is we've got park ordinance that dictates curfew, 6 AM, you can be in a park up to 11 PM. And so that's always been kind of the challenge in the field of parks and recreation is lighting and whether, the balance between safety and security and being able to see at night versus now you can see at night that invites people into a park after park hours. And so that's kind of been the never-ending debate in our field with that. But I know for Butterfly Trail in the parking lot, that's seemed to help because we've had issues with vandalism at that particular restroom. And so the lighting has seemed to help with that. So that's something that we could look into.
What about just like using a timer for the lights and having them turn out at 11?
Turn off at 11?
Yeah.
Yeah, generally, for the most part, during the summer months when sun's up till 9 PM, the busy season, you've got daylight for the most part. And that's usually the kind of the time frame when you've got activity in the parks. When it starts getting dark early, when you're talking November, December, January, February, you have little to no activity in the parks. And so the need to have lights on from 5:30 PM to 11 PM, it's not really as critical because you just don't have the activity usually in the colder off-season months. But they've got dusk to dawn timers, they've got clock timers you can put on them. So
Sure.
there's really all kinds of options you can do with it.
Ken, in the master plan on the parks, is there anything planned for up north?
Yeah, so right now, we just put out the request for it, so, I don't know, when are those due back?
June 28th is the request for proposals. In addition to that, we also put out an RFP for the updating of the comprehensive plan for the city. Last time that was done was in 2014. And as you all know, the city has grown quite a bit. And so it's time to update the city's comprehensive plan in addition to doing, I believe, for the first time, a comprehensive parks and recreation master plan.
Is there anything in the works for sidewalks where Eagles Parkway and AA out there in my no man's land of Winding Creek?
So we have attempted now 2 times to put in a grant applications through Mid-America Regional Council for funding, federal funding, to not only improve, but as you know, there is also a plan for a trail along Eagles Parkway as well as sidewalks. And then improvements for at the intersection there with the school, high school, improving that intersection there at Kirby. So we have put in grant applications. Unfortunately, we've not received any high enough scores to receive any type of funding or participate in that funding. But we've put in requests. We're in the cycle for funding. This would be for FY, I believe it's 2026, 2027 funding. We're just getting ready to submit the application here probably in the next month or so. And then they'll make announcements later on in the year. We compete for the MARC Metro-wide area for those applications. So we compete against the city of Kansas City as well for that funding.
Are they getting grant funding for their big over-the-highway park? So if they do, they'll probably train everything up, won't it?
Might be one of those applications. But in addition to Eagles Parkway funding, sidewalk, trail, so the
Because
tough
we're looking
thing
at
is
Buckner
it's
Targety too with that, right?
Buckner Tarsney,
From where, because I know I know when the library goes in, it'll be completed up to the library, correct?
well, we also in this round, we submitted an application for a trail from the, it would be basically where the trail connection is down to, it would be down to Snybar.
Yeah, and we actually have it in there to continue south from Snybar to Nelson.
Right.
As kind of an ad alternate, but it would connect to the existing Blue Branch Creek Trail that daylights there at Buckner Tarsney Road and would continue south. And Alderman Mills, that piece you're talking about too.
Oh, Shannon, don't hold the button there. When you hold it, it turns it off.
Sorry. That's what happens when you get advice from the finance director.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the piece that you're referring is in our capital improvements program, like Mark had mentioned, but it's also in our Trails Master Plan. In essence, it's connectivity from the high school west on Southwest Eagles Parkway or AA to Snybar Boulevard to get sidewalk and or
There's
trail there.
nothing down there, but you know, once you hit Winding
We
Creek.
agree.
you have
I think that
You have
total-
the creek and you have the storage lot
Yeah.
and all the way up to Casey's. There's just nothing down there.
Total project, I believe, is close to $3 million.
That sounds about right, yeah.
I bet people ask about a trail along across the front of the property there on BB going down, coming back down to downtown. We have a lot of people, especially students, that run along there when they're doing their track training and stuff, and they just they can't understand why we haven't made that a higher priority to have a trail across there. I don't know if something will be worked in with what the library's doing when they put their portion in and so forth, if that can take care of part of it, but,
And
The
that
answer is
is,
yes.
I know it's probably on the deal, but it's.
So in lieu of a sidewalk, the library has agreed to put in the trail along the frontage of their property.
That gets us up to the driveway. Now we gotta get from the driveway on up to Snybar. from
So
there.
that would be then the rest of that would be the grant application that we're submitting.
Okay.
So anytime we have development that occurs, we try and work that in as a part of the
I
development.
mean, I understand that because it helps. It's one of those that people feel like should be a higher priority to get somewhere. If we can't get grants, maybe we see if we can't find the money otherwise out of the budget or something to forgetting that. They don't understand the cost of getting a trail put in, but, we're not talking an extremely long crossways across there, but
And that was one of our pictures, is having that cross-country team coming across coming across the
field
crest
there.
of the hill, coming northbound, Buckner Tarsney,
Yeah.
as well as the gentleman who has the carriage with the baby. It's always alarming to me.
Yeah.
That we don't have a sidewalk or a trail for folks along Buckner Tarsney.
Because it is used a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
next to the people using the sidewalk along Snybar, yeah, it's the most one I see the most people on outside of that.
Another quick thing that I wanted to add, prior to me coming tonight, my delay, I was meeting with Pastor Geiger. He just wants me to let everybody know that he'd like more involvement in the city, that his property is available for use. He didn't even know if down the road, Food Truck Friday, he's got his parking lot, his building. He expressed concern that in the past, he thinks that First Baptist had a bad reputation. And he wants to say that there is no such thing as bad reputation with the church, and they want to be involved however we see fit. But they're available, their parking lot's available. Patel Group's going to be using it for Friday. So I do know he needs to fix the clock. I was thinking I had 10 minutes left. It was stuck at 5:50, and I looked at my Apple Watch and saw it was 5:57. I was trying to figure out how many red lights or stop signs I can run. You didn't hear that. But he wants to get involved. So whatever you guys think, whatever you need from the church, Pastor Geiger is wanting to be there for you.
And he was gracious enough to serve on our police station advisory board, and that is actually where we held the open house back in January. So it's definitely very welcoming and kind to
Yeah,
do that.
and like you said, he is letting them use his lot this Friday, and I was gonna be in touch with him after that one to see if we have anybody else that wants to do something similar, if they could use it, or.
And he was thinking that it's big enough down the road for another year of food trucks. If we ever moved the location, since they're self-contained, he was fine with that, of course. I mean, there was only one concern, obvious, what we just voted on tonight, that he wouldn't want in his parking lot. But other than that,
And for that down there, what I've told all of them is, that needs to stay on their premises for
Right.
that. So I think they will allow food and stuff from the trucks, but any kind of beverages will stay on their premises down there.
so, and he said he'd open a gym even on hot summer nights. And so they just really want to get involved. They want to make sure the city knows that whatever bad reputation the church had before Pastor Wayne was there, that, he's there for the city.
As far as I know, I don't know the bad reputation. They're a fine church, have been there for a lot of years.
Yeah,
so-
yeah. He
so-
just said it when he first became the pastor. He'd heard some stuff, so he just wants to make sure the city's
How long's he
involved.
been there?
I know you've been part of Fuel basketball and stuff, so I told him, hey, I'll spread the love and let him know, and
All right?
let you know on whatever ideas you might have. So,
If there's any specific concerns that come up in the future, definitely bring it to our attention, because we don't want rumors running things or
Right.
whatever, and we can clarify things if there is any issues. We don't want to wait.
he
That's
hasn't
something-
heard anything lately,
Well,
but
that's
he
good,
just
but
wants to make sure he's there for the city,
if it does,
property, and
bring it to our attention. I'll
Absolutely.
figure it out.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to attend the Rosewood Hills HOA meeting. They asked me to come in and speak and get feedback from the citizens that showed up. There's probably 50 to 100 people that showed up to it. It was a really great meeting. And if you can imagine, the feedback I received was Buckner, Tarsney, and Duncan. And so where are we at? I mean, is there a 10-year plan on that intersection? I know that's a MoDOT intersection for sure. But obviously, any pressure we're giving them.
Yeah, we actually just held a meeting with their new area engineer, was that 3 weeks ago probably, Mark? And had a list of items that we submitted to her, that were concerns or say opportunities for MoDOT going forward. But that was definitely one of them. It's something that I drive every day, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it is a little nicer now that Duncan is
It's very nice.
repaved, but yeah, there's just a huge need there, and so that is one of the top things that we had relayed to her was something's got to be done with it.
Did that conversation go well? Or?
Yeah, so basically she's making the rounds right now because she is new to the position, so we've kind of inundated her with quite a bit of stuff, and then we just, last week, I believe, our engineer sent over some supporting documents for some things that she had questions on, so
Great.
our hope is that we hear back, because there's a few items there, is that we hear back fairly quick on yes, no, this is how it can happen, so we can at least know what the next steps need to be.
Sure.
As far as trying to address that.
It's great.
Just out of curiosity, what would that look like? I mean, 'cause we're talking really, it probably need to drop that elevation probably, don't you, for one? Then add lanes also? That's be a pretty extensive.
Well, it is, and
project.
that's the, well, maybe not unique's not the right word, but, you know, a lot of places, if you just have one corner that develops, like, that's fine, you can work around that, but in this case, it kind of needs a big chunk on all four sides, because you do have so many different things going on.
House sets so close to the road, it could be a hindrance to anything they might plan there as well.
What's that?
The house sets so close, that's sitting there so close to the road, it could be a hindrance.
Yeah, that's not the house shouldn't be
That property's for sale.
I think it's sold, actually.
yeah.
It's actually sold, hadn't it?
Has it sold? Was that
If it-
commercial? or-
If it hasn't, it will, yeah, I mean, I don't, big picture wise, I don't know that that's gonna be a major
Okay.
problem for that. Out of all the things we have there, that's
The other thing you can add to her list, if you can get back with her, is that unengineered speed bump right there in front of the Price Chopper.
it is there. We have made the comment that it is probably, what they on there, half a dozen worth of attempts at fixing it, and they're obviously not fixing it.
They've all failed.
Yeah, that was one. Jefferson was another, the area there at Woodbury and Butner Tarsney is one. So basically, that whole stretch as you start moving up from that interchange improvement that was done.
Yeah, I mean,
a
the
few
second
years
part of
ago.
that was rust at BB. There's multiple people who are like, almost ran into the car right there. You know, you pop that hill from Price Chopper going north, and there'll be a car sitting there trying to turn left onto Russ. And you just pop that hill and the traffic stopped. Chief, I mean, how many accidents are worked there? I'm sure I've seen at least one or two.
It's just hard to determine when somebody stopped or how fast they're going. You come over that hill.
Pop that hill, and there they
It
are.
is an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically all of those intersections working up to Duncan are just, you can just consider that whole stretch of Buckner Tarsney basically was one big
Yeah.
issue that we turned over, and hopefully we can get some action on that. And part of that, you know, Mark had mentioned the grant side of it earlier. Part of it is to be eligible for some of this funding, like you have to get a road on a map of sorts for it to even be eligible for some of that funding. And with it not actually being under our control, that's one of the things we're trying to get quite a few roads to be at least listed on a plan to where then we can submit for some of those dollars.
So we'd have to pay the engineering cost on that then, or?
No, I mean, at this point, some of it is just basically getting them to push to have it on kind of the list of
Oh, I see what you're saying.
approved roads for funding.
Yeah. That's funny because my wife will even make comments that she'll go to Blue Springs instead of going to Green Valley because she doesn't want to go through that intersection. And so I think as more houses are being put in, I mean, Rosewood has a new, 75 new homes going in. Woodbury's blowing up still. I'd be surprised if that's the end of the building going on the north side, that intersection is definitely hampering people from, my neighborhood, just anywhere in Ward 3 coming into the city and using their tax revenue in our city instead of just going to Adams Dairy because it's easier.
Used to be 4-lane all the way to Pink Hill.
Yeah, definitely through Duncan for sure.
Yeah, and then, I mean, going forward, I mean, it will continue. Duncan will be the issue now, and then obviously it's gonna kind of continue upwards.
Right.
But yeah, definitely aware, and I said Mark and Dick, city engineer, have done, I think, a good job of trying to put as much stuff together as they can and get it out to as many people as we can. I mean, we've got our representatives aware of those issues and the need for help as well.
No, I know it's not a new issue. Yeah. It was just great to get the feedback. And that was like one thing in that HOA meeting that was very unanimous. I think everybody
Right.
agreed that was the one thing they wanted. So there's that. And then I also wanted to bring up, I mean, obviously last week, and this has a little bit to do with the police department and more just a conversation in general, but you know, there was the school shooting in Texas last week. And I think it's a good thing to bring up. I think that we have a great police department that's prepared for everything that we could throw at them. But I think it's a good idea to take another look at what we're doing and the training that's going into our police department and how they work with the school district. Not just coverage of the schools. I mean, currently we have 3 SROs. There's what, 7 schools? 7 or 8?
Let's see, high school, 2 middle, yeah, I mean,
8 if you count the
8 if you
daycare.
count early childhood.
Yeah, which I don't know if you want to count that, but you know, we have schools that are by themselves, like Matthews Elementary, that there is no high school that's near it or middle school that has an SRO assigned to it that's near it. You know, the more that news is coming out about that shooting, it sounds like it happened within 3 minutes. There was no SRO there, and we saw what happened. So, you know, challenging the city, challenging the school to look at funding. The city provides, the school provides, and if there's any grants that are coming out of it, COVID money that's outstanding. And then, like I mentioned before, the training aspects. I mean, I know the school goes through ALICE training. When they provide that ALICE training, is our SROs there with them during that training?
Our SROs are actually the one that oversee that
Is it?
training.
Perfect.
So I think we have 3 officers that's ALICE certified, 3 or 4 officers that's ALICE certified. So from that standpoint, our guys are overseeing all of the training in the school, generally do it during the summer. But I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things, I've been on leave and I came back today, it's my first day back, but that's one of the things that I think we can do things a little bit different to make sure that the school is being secure. And so I sat down with Captain Palachek. Yeah, we all concerned about the inside of the school.
I appreciate
But I
that.
think we also need to patrol the outside of the school a couple of times during the day as well, because you could very well see something beginning before it actually make it into the school.
Absolutely.
So that's something that we talked about today. Also, the high school, it's busy. That
I saw
officer,
some stuff over this weekend with the social media in the high school. And
well, I don't have social media, so I didn't see that. But what I do know is that Officer Aarons is super busy in the high school
sure,
every day. And so what we did with that, he normally had the high school and Snibar. So we took Snibar from him, and South Middle School officer does all the elementary schools on the south side of the city and patrol them equally,
Yeah.
along with the South Middle School. You know, Officer Imes patrols the north side.
Okay.
So we're getting more patrolling out of this.
do you think you have adequate coverage with 3 SROs?
I think definitely need more.
Definitely not.
Especially with the high school. The high school maybe need 2 officers at that school just itself because of the type of activity that's generated. So, yeah.
How about monitoring social media? Is there anybody at the PD that's assigned to, for instance, like Instagram accounts about fighting at schools and stuff like that? Is there any type of?
It's being done.
It's being done.
It's being done.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Mayor, I would ask that this is a priority for the board. I would even go as far to say that maybe we should have some sort of committee that is assigned, because it's more than just coverage, funding, and training. It's also mental health. And the reason why I bring this up, not just because of what happened last week, but it's interesting watching on the news. I've not heard one criticism of the school in all this. Criticism's been on the local police department and your response. And so absolutely this is a school issue, and we share funding with our school resource officers, but at the end of the day, you're the police department, and it's your objective, and you're the one that has to provide the safety to the schools. So when something happens, it's going to be on us, the city, to make sure that the schools were safe and we did everything right. And so I think it's no better time than this summer to review everything: mental health, social media, our coverage, are the schools locking doors correctly, surveillance, everything else, and come up with some sort of plan and fill any of those holes before this next school year.
We can't prepare or think of everything that potentially is going to happen. I like to say our guys are highly trained.
Sure.
And the school have things in place as well to secure rooms and stuff like that if an incident was to happen. So I would offer this year to satisfy you and the rest of the board that when they do the training at the school, that you guys come up and take a look. And you'll be really impressed with what we have in place. Thank you.
Is that the Alice training?
Yes.
Does the police department have any type of multi-jurisdictional active shooter training held at schools during the summertime to prepare for the upcoming school year?
No, but we have done some active shooter training. It's been a little while since we've been able to get everybody together, but we have done some active shooter training.
That's kind of what I just think it needs to be one of those priorities, Mr. Mayor. And I think, that would be one of the really good things is a multi-jurisdictional type training. We get our partners, I was an Oak Grove police officer, and I know how much we relied on Green Valley relied on us, and just getting those type of trainings together with the sheriff's department and everybody else and our medical staff. So unfortunately, if something like that ever happened, we're obviously prepared, but it's good to freshen up on that stuff too. That's all I have.
Okay. One of the things I want to look at is kind of the overall plan, and I kind of hope to hear something out of the chamber when they gave their presentation the other night, is what exactly are the plans and goals and actions that are being taken for economic development? I know we kind of gave all that to them, but, every time we get a new business come in, it happens to be a fast food restaurant, and you see all the remarks on Facebook with, another deal, we want to set down a restaurant. Are there goals to get that? What efforts are being made to get a sit-down restaurant so that we meet that request that the public is constantly giving us that they would like to see something like that? So not knowing anything about what they have planned, what they are doing, what funding we have available to them to do that, whether there are avenues. I know at one time we sent people to a big conference and generated some interest in Green Valley. Have we considered anything like that again to develop some interest in our community outside of local businesses or, so forth? So it's, I don't know what that is. So if staff has anything, they could forward it to the board so everybody has an idea what's going on, what we're getting for our dollars with the chamber and the partnership doing that. It'd be nice to know so.
Yeah, and on basically what we have here are 3 developers that kind of have the majority of the bigger commercial areas. And that's one of the, even city-wise, like I've been in contact with them on obviously relaying that message that a sit-down restaurant is something that people want. We have thought that we had at least one that was close to being here, and then that did not happen. But as a whole, it's trying to just keep that communication going with those developers because they do have a lot of the contacts. And one of the things with the places that have come in, it's not like we haven't reached out to say this is what we want. It's just them coming in and they meet the zoning requirements for it at this point. And as a whole, a lot of sit-down restaurants are leery of taking some unless it checks every box, or kind of leery on taking a chance right now. Kind of still, I guess, the COVID hangover of sorts, because quite a few of them did get burned. But I mean, we hear that and we know that's something, I mean, I want it. I know as a resident here, but it's just trying to keep that communication open with as many different, with those developers, and then as many different groups as we can to try to get some of those to go ahead and plant roots here.
So, and just like, I know there's something that they're working on, I just, does the partnership have a plan? Do they have what avenues they can go through to bring in some of the restaurants that we would like to see in our community, Or is it we're just waiting for somebody to come in here and say they want to put money in our community and build a building and have a restaurant? I mean, I know when I go out of town and I go to a sit-down restaurant and it's not in Blue Springs real close, I mentioned it to the manager that we would be nice to have one of these in Green Valley, because we're 15,000 population with only one sit-down restaurant. And we've got a couple now that are kind of growing into that with the two facilities on Main Street. But they seem to be interested, and they've given me a card, and I've made phone calls up to the district managers on that level, and that's while I was just a citizen. Now that I'm back on the board, it's one of those things that needs to be a little more coordinated, because, I don't want to stumble over something somebody else is working on, when, by doing something on my own. So I need to know what if anything's going on, so that I don't interfere with some activities that may be going on there. And if there's anything that they need assistance on, like aldermen to come and meet with, people in the company or whatever, and tell them of our intent and interest of them to come into Grain Valley, we have the property on Main Street that we haven't got very much in that, if we're gonna lose money on a piece of property, it would be nice to have a nice sit-down restaurant, come in and build and put something right there, as kind of a incubator process to get it in here, so I don't know whether that would be something that would work, but, without knowing anything about what's going on, it's hard to know where to put focus toward, moving it, in a direction.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but we really only have a couple of developers in town who are doing stuff, really, and they're mostly doing their own marketing and everything at this point, correct?
It is true. One of the things that we, as you know, we are going to be reaching out to them to kind of have a little roundtable with those developers, and that's will be one of the questions is what do you need from us? What can we do to try to help to get some of these going? The plus side is they are self-sufficient, probably is the best. Or like they all have their own individual programs and sometimes don't necessarily
And
need
just
or
kind of
want help,
expand
but
on, that's one of the things that I was going to cover, but one of the things I've had staff do is we're going to, reach out to those developers, and we're going to have to sit down with them and say, hey, what do you need from the city? What are the struggles that you have, with Grand Valley? What can we do to help this? And this is, really what we're hearing we need, basically, asking them what we can do to help them. And along with that, we're also going to do just for every business in town, invite them. We're going to do a business reception. I think we looking at August sometime, just to invite, any business to come, and same kind of thing, kind of an open house like forum, say, what do you need from us? What struggles do you have, with Grand Valley? How can we help? One thing we constantly hear, I know from new businesses, is, the cost of doing business in Grand Valley, as, with rent and those types of things. So hopefully when we meet with the developers and landlords, maybe we can, ask them, what can we be doing as a city to help ease these costs, so we can get these businesses in here. So that's one of the things that we are going to be doing this summer.
Well, and if, when they get that information together, if it could be provided, so what can be shared, provided to the board, so they can, know what's going on. So when someone hits us with why can't you get this? We've got a little better information that why we can't and what we're trying to do. Because I know in the past when the sit-down restaurants have come in, the big issue was that through the week, they just don't have enough sit-down
Yeah.
traffic, they say.
Bus business, yeah.
You know, Friday weekends and stuff like that, they feel like there's a significant amount there. But I think as we've grown quite a bit more, there's more of that available. And how we get the numbers for that might be something that we need to figure out in that plan is, you know, how can we find out what numbers of people would eat in Green Valley? I mean, if there was another sit-down restaurant, would they eat during the week, during the day? You know, we've got a significant amount of retired people. You know, I eat locally, regularly out. You know, doing something nice for the wife so she doesn't have to bother cooking for me. You know? So, just, you know, I don't know where we're at, what we're doing and so forth. And it's something that, you know, it's been a big interest out there. People want to see something along that line and what we're doing. And I mean, all my time before, and then I've never seen a plan what our economic development was, how we were going to go about getting it, you know, just so forth. So I don't know if we need to get some people together to brainstorm on what we need to do, and it's going to be part of what you're saying, working with the developers to find out what their hurdles are and what we can remove, and what you know, businesses coming in, what their deal is, and you know, of course, it should involve keeping local businesses, you know, viable, but it you know, without anything on paper, there's nothing here guiding us to where we're going and what we're trying to do. And it's an area that affects us greatly, and we need more commercial stuff to help pay a bigger part of the taxes so our residences can see a relief there. So, I don't know where we go from there.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Mark, not to change the subject, on that intersection of Duncan and BP, has the fire department weighed in? I know they have that new location going at Duncan and Dillingham. Did they weigh in that meeting in MoDOT at all? Does them weighing in, saying it's tough to get a truck through there, you know, with the new station? Do you think that would have any type of help with that intersection at all?
I mean, they could weigh in. I mean, they
Have we
weren't a part
approached
of
them?
our meeting.
They were a part of the meeting?
They were not a part of our meeting with MoDOT.
Have we approached them? It's not,
The fire district?
yeah.
No.
No, I don't think we have to this point. One of the things that we did learn on the MoDOT side of things is with they're understaffed and they're trying to prioritize things. So safety is one of those things that come up. One of the issues is until you actually have numbers of something happening, it's like if it's not on paper, it doesn't exist and it's not happening. So that's one of the things we've tried to look at. And I mean, for those of you that were around long enough when we started the interchange project, like it actually, the grade on it actually went up right before it was done, and it went up as in better because people just quit using it, so it didn't have as many vehicles going through there. But a lot of these intersections and stuff that where they have questions that come up, they go and look. What they consider safety is they go through and look at accident reports and that kind of thing, and that is one of the things that we brought up there. And basically, we're told that there wasn't really anything at this point that brought it up above the hundreds of other intersections that they look at. So that's one of the, you know, going forward, it's one of our jobs is going to be to try to present as much information as we can to make the case for why something is needed there.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
absolutely.
maybe the CJC side is
They just, it
It's
seems
part
like
of
they
that,
have a
yeah.
lot of pull in this community, so.
CJC probably should be involved in it because I can tell you, and Alderman Knox can tell you, there's a terrible line of sight for making that corner on an emergency vehicle. I mean, on top of the fact the house is there, you've got a hill crest just to the north of that. And that's gonna slow the personnel going through there, and it's also gonna put them at risk because people are gonna pop that hill coming southbound and not gonna, you know, they're gonna have to deal with the fire truck being in the middle of the road for them.
Right.
So CJC could offer considerable input that could help leverage us up the list a little bit because of the safe response there.
Yeah, that was my thinking.
Nice thing is it's got a stoplight now, so the fire trucks and ambulance can turn the lights red except for their direction, so that eases some of it, but it is a, you know, I've personally worked 5 or 6 fatalities at that intersection, so hadn't seen it so much in,
I don't know if that one has the Opticom on it. It was put in after some of that stuff, and
any new stoplight that comes in the district has to have an Opticom.
I knew we had that with Blue Springs, that they were to maintain and put in that for new sites, but didn't know if we had it with Green Valley as well. Of course, that's MoDOT or whatever, but,
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
our signal.
Talking to MoDOT, all of them have Opticons on them.
okay, I'll have to look a little closer next time I go through there. But
Yeah, just like I said, just a thought that they seem to have a lot of pull. I mean, if we're talking about safety issues and the fire department says we think it's a safety issue, I think that would be
Oh, it's a hazard.
a hazard, however we want to phrase it.
Any other ones? I'll go through a few here, maybe that will spark some. Okay, so, one thing I know Chief is on this, cause I know you sent out an email, cause I got questions today about it. Police Advisory Board, was something that we set up, about 2 years ago via ordinance or resolution. So, then, right before they were supposed to meet, COVID hit, and so they never really got a chance to meet. So the Police Advisory Board is going to be gearing up here in the near future. So that can actually be one of those boards that can, look at, what the police department is doing with the school district in forms of, school safety, and it's made up of citizens in town, so they can give their feedback for that. They'll also, give us feedback for different areas of, police department that we're looking at. Down the line at some point, the community may want to look at something like a public safety sales tax. That would be something that board would examine and make a recommendation back to this board if that's, something they foresee us wanting to do. So they will be gearing up and start meeting. Something that has not came up that we're going to have to look at is updating the ward boundaries. We had a census, not too long ago, and we're supposed to update, by population, what the wards look like, based on that. So that's something I know Ken has kind of been talking to Joe Lauber about a little bit. So that's something we'll be discussing in the near future too, is looking at, I'm for sure we'll have to probably adjust them a little bit. So I don't know what that will look like for sure, but, we will be looking at probably having to adjust those lines here and there. So that'll be on the horizon as well. I talked about, the developer meetings and the business reception we plan on having. Definitely when we get that reception set up, we'll get those dates out to you guys so you can attend those if you're able to. Again, come back with the school district. We are looking at doing a kind of a combined meeting with the school. Ken and I have talked about is we'll have a few not doing a full school board meeting and a full board of aldermen meeting. That might be kind of hard to get everyone's times together so everyone can be there. But we're looking at a few representatives off of this board and a few representatives off of their board, kind of meeting, touching base. What they need from us, what we need from them, kind of thing, discussion. We're looking at doing that. I know Dr. Willie was taking over July 1st. So I think sometime after that's when we're, once they get their new leadership in place, we'll look at doing that. So we'll be reaching out to a couple of you to join us on that. And we talked about sidewalks. We talked about parks. That's all on my list. And park master plan, doing that. Sure, the dog park will be part of that park master plan. He's gonna ignore me. Dog park.
I know we'll definitely get the community involved with this plan. Whatever the community tells us, that's where we'll go.
All right. So I think that's pretty much covers one thing, to be more specific about the police advisory board, one thing when we get them kind of going is I did want them, ask citizens if they could make some recommendations to, I know the summer coming up, school being out, a lot of times we see a spike in some of the, more property crime type of things. So I know police department been out. I saw, I talked to a couple of them I guess Sunday, we got the mini bikes and the four-wheelers out. I know they were trying to talk to those kids on Sunday for buzzing through the neighborhoods, and I talked to them about that. So, maybe if there's some recommendations from the citizens, especially on the police advisory board, of how, we can tackle some of these property crime type things that we run into, with the, car break-ins and those types of things. I hopefully the police advisory board might be able to give us some recommendations on that. Anything staff wants? This is your chance, staff, also, if you see any needs for your departments or anything that you would like to talk to us about. Someone's gonna be brave out there, aren't they?
Well, I think all of them kind of have just, I think it would be good just to hear kind of what some of the goals are, things that each department is working on. I can start from the admin side of just some of the bigger ticket items that have kind of been going on this year and that we're moving into the next phases of. But as we told you guys, we've gone through that employee experience survey where we've sat down with all the employees in every department. So the next step with that is obviously we've already been reviewing it and kind of coming up with that game plan on what that looks like as far as, addressing those needs. We know employee retention and recruiting is something that's huge that everybody's struggling with. So we're trying to, instead of figuring out, or instead of us just sitting back, throwing ideas out at things or assuming we know, it's going out and actually talking to the employees and seeing the things that are important to them. So that's something that's upcoming. Obviously with the Missouri Main Street side of things, we have that grant, so now we'll be kind of going full steam ahead with that. You'd mentioned sticking with the downtown revitalization. Obviously, that's a big thing that's come up in surveys and it hasn't gone away. I mean, that's something that we put a lot of value in, but that's also one of those things too that we think can drive people. We want people to have a reason to be on Buckner-Tarsney and to go down that stretch instead of going to Adams Dairy, because it can be easier at times. So there's not one silver bullet necessarily for it, but all of these things that we're working on, I think, should help that and make it more appealing. And we do have some success stories down there that I think we need to build on and let people know about. The brand implementation side of things, we have it established now. It's getting all of that out, which can involve way more than you'd ever think it could involve, but we're well on our way with that. As far as kind of that customer service side of things, giving people more options on, whether it's how they can pay a bill or how they can apply for a permit type thing. We're right in the middle of implementing some more online permitting for that, just trying to make it a lot easier. That is probably one of the things when we went through COVID, whether it's attending meetings or just actually having to show up for something, is people like the idea of being able to do some things virtually or do more things online. So it's kind of bringing up, instead of the city being the one that's kind of behind and archaic, like trying to bring ourselves up from a technological standpoint to make things easier for everyone. So that's kind of ongoing. Talked about recruiting and retaining employees. We have HR going through and kind of doing an update and a check on where we're at as far as a salary study, which was done in 2018. Obviously, in the times we're in now, it's kind of changed the approach we have to take with some things. So I hope to have some information back on that we'll be talking to you guys about, but obviously that's important. And then I think just communication as a whole, we actually just had our PIO, her first day was today, so that position is staffed again. Teresa's done a great job with that the last few months, and I think you've seen that, like we're having a lot more interaction out there where it's not just, okay, there's a meeting tonight, or that's trying to, kind of improve that line of communication where, it's not just, if the city's putting something out there, it's not just something necessarily serious or a bad thing, a water main break or what have you. It's just trying to get that path opened up a little bit to hopefully when we need citizens for something, whether it's being on a board or committee or we just need their input on something, we've already kind of got that relationship built a little bit. So that's an ongoing thing.
Can I add there, when you're talking about the PIO? I've seen it in other communities where the PIO puts out information involving like our ordinances on dogs and cats. And just does it out there as an explanation thing about what the rules are, so at least it's out there, somebody. And each month or each week, they would send out a little deal that explained our ordinances about the grass and so forth, and about the, just different things that were going on. And I'm sure there's a whole list, and then you can recycle these things later because people move in, they forget them and whatever. But it was well received in the community, so at least people, like trash cans sitting at the curb for over a certain length of time. I got a letter says I'm in trouble, I got a ticket. No, you haven't got a ticket. You just got something that reminds you, well, this is another way of getting that out there to let people know what the rules are, so they don't get that letter and misinterpret what they're being told. But if we've got somebody back in position now, I think that would be a great thing to have, is this regular updating and covering some of the ordinances we've got out there that, staff knows which ones are issues in the parks or wherever, that we have problems with people not knowing the rules and how things are supposed to go. Well, we just put an article out there that explains it. We don't have a newspaper to put it out there for us, so we gotta utilize our other media to get the information out and hopefully keep people informed so that everybody gets along.
Yeah, and we do some of those things that are recurring like that are seasonal. We do try to put also in the city view, because that's something that we know is gonna go to every door, and sometimes people take a look at that because it looks like a magazine more than a piece of junk mail that gets thrown away. But yeah, I don't disagree. I think the more different ways you can get things out doesn't hurt.
Right. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're fine. And then kind of the other, obviously, it'll be ongoing, and it's a PD thing too, but the police station as a whole, getting in that whole design process and the contractor on board. That'll be a project from now through probably first quarter of 2024, so that'll just kind of be a constant thing that's in the background there. But those are kind of some of the highlights. There's a lot there, been very time consuming, but I think it's a lot of things that have needed to be done for a long time, and for one reason or another just hadn't been done. But again, it goes back to, and I sent you guys that strategic plan. That's been one of the best things that when the board sat down in probably July of 2020, sat down with the facilitator, and then we kind of came up, everybody got a chance to talk about what their goals in that were. We took all that information and put that together and kind of came out with our 5-year plan, just like we do for capital improvements. And then every 6 months, that's what we go through and have new goals, that all those goals have to tie to that bigger picture goal. And it's something that it helps us keep on track a lot more. And the idea being, if we're looking at making a decision on something, does that decision help us get to that big goal? And if it doesn't, the question needs to be, does that goal need to change? Do we need to add something? Or, should we really be focusing on this right now? So internally, that's something that, helps us a lot, trying to keep us focused, because I'm sure you guys know any organization that you've been in, if somebody talks about a 5-year plan and you don't have those shorter term goals, it kind of just, time goes by and you don't, everything seems like bigger picture further away, and it gets put off, and then you realize you're 5 years in and you didn't actually do any of the things that you hope to do. So that's kind of been the different, approach that we've taken with this. So hopefully that will be successful this time. There you go, guys. I started off for you now. One of you got to step up to the plate.
All right. Police Department. One of the things that we've been able to do, I know we had guys leave, we bring guys on. We have one guy that we get ready to bring on, one officer we get ready to bring on, that'll bring us up to full staff. And then we got 2 additional positions this year. And we have about 8 cadets that just graduated to fill them. We're setting up the testing and interviewing process for that. So we have that, we'll be full staff. My goal is, once we get the 2 additional officers, is to do a split shift where they'll be overlapping the day and night shift. I think that'll give us the most coverage at that time, but we would be fully staffed. Hopefully we can get this done by late July, early August, and we have everybody in place. The other thing I did is, the state of Missouri had changed, our CEUs. We used to have to get 48 hours in, 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. And now, because of things that have occurred in the state of Missouri, we have to get 24 hours of CEUs each year, which is difficult. It's hard. So what I was able to do is just set up in-house training, defensive tactics training, firearms training, with using the Milo or the smoke range simulator. And we set that up in March, and all of our guys before June have their 24 hours for the year. So at the end of the year, we're not struggling to meet our certification. So that's been done so far. It also, when we do in-house training, it free up monies so we can send guys to specialized training. So that's something that I've done. From a technology standpoint, and Alderman Honor, you may remember this, does drones that we attempted to get, or I put in for them, Mayor, you remember this too, I put in for drones. But we was able to secure 2 drones for the police department. Getting them is the easy part. Getting certified on them is the most difficult part of this. And I didn't know we actually had to get a pilot's license, basically. So right now, Captain Palachek has taken on that task, and he said in about 2 weeks, he'll go ahead and take the FAA test for his pilot's license. And so this allow us to, search for missing kids, do aerials for the city. There's just so many different things that this will allow us to do. Plus, we're getting LPRs, license plate readers, body cams, and then they're changing our whole radio system. So these are the new types of equipment that we're getting in. From a business standpoint, one of the things that, Ken and Teresa stressed was more building checks so the businesses can be safe. My goal was to increase that by 25%. As of from January to April, we've already increased it by 18.6%. We've already done over 1,000 more building checks in this short time than we did last year. So I think we're gonna definitely surpass our goal by the end of the year. From a community stability standpoint, one of the things that I wanted to do, or my goal was to do, was to just try to connect with the community in some form, some fashion. And so what I did was create a group of community stakeholders that had just special skills. And so we meet, and our goal is to, you find homes around here that need small repairs done, or they got trash or debris in their yard. And our goal is to go out there and reach out to them and help them clean up that so that it beautifies the city. Some additional things that I've done or we've accomplished so far, and again, Alderman Skinner, you kind of talked about mental health. One of the things we have established is a peer support group for the officers and city employees, if need be. So on that group, we have 4 officers, and we have Chaplain Wayne Geiger. We have a psychological clinician on that group. This group will be certified from June 6th through 10th, again, right here in Green Valley at the First Baptist Church. I don't know if you remember this, Mayor, but Johnson County had got a grant to have a clinician to ride along with their police officers. I've stayed on comprehensive and complained, and they actually assigned a clinician to Green Valley, Oak Grove, Buckner. And I met with her a couple of weeks ago, and one day a week, she's gonna come in and ride with Green Valley officers. And she's making herself available to us and her resources when we need. So, been able to do that. We also have a critical response K-9. You've seen him, Dozier. That all falls in line with the mental health, having healthy mental health. And I know I told you guys that my goal was to get every officer with the Green Valley Police Department CIT certified. I'm down to 2. And I have both of them scheduled to complete their CIT training in July. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Chief, I got a question about the drones. You're only having one officer and not a street officer being certified?
Well, we put it, before we even got the drones, we put it out to all the officers because the training was actually free. And nobody followed through on it. So Captain Palachek went on through with the training. We will make it open if anybody wants to do it. But right now, nobody have taken it upon themselves to go through the training and all.
Interesting.
I guess I'll go. Community Development Department. We mentioned previously, but I'll just give a little bit additional information, is we do have the RFP out for updating our comprehensive plan. So in that process, not only are the proposals due June 28th, but then we'll also have a selection committee comprised of a representative from the Board of Aldermen, representative from the Planning Commission, representative from the Park Board, then city staff serve as a selection committee on choosing then a consultant. Our whole goal is to have a lot of citizen input as we look at updating not only the comprehensive plan, but also in regards to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Looking at a target goal would probably be looking at a plan adoption around July of 2023 for both of those plans. We also are looking at online permit processes. Ken had mentioned, when we look at online permit process, that's in our building permit process, so that someone can go online and apply for a building permit. They can submit their building plans, upload building plans. They could also pay for that building plan online as well. We would review the plans online electronically and give approval on their plot plan, building plans, permit paid on plan, the permit issued online as well. That would also extend towards the inspection process. So then when our inspectors would go out and make inspections, they would relay approval or disapproval to the builder in regards to each phase of the inspection process. You know, the old process was you used to stick a sticker, like on the furnace or on the ground rough or something. This way, they would have immediate response either by a text or an email, approval or disapproval. And if something was disapproved, we could actually send a picture of why it was disapproved. So what we're trying to do is just improve the technology and communication with our builders as far as in the permit process. And this would also extend to like roof permits, fence permits, and also extend to our planning and zoning, special use permits, conditional use permits, all throughout our permitting process would be online throughout that process. We're also updating our stormwater master plan. The reason why this is an important phase is, we're regulated by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources through an MS4 permit process. It's very important that the city continue to keep that master plan updated, because not only is the state looking at us, but also the EPA in regards to stormwater runoff and drainage. And so with that updated stormwater master plan, it only serves as where our drainage basins are, where our water runoff is occurring, but also as our communication is letting the folks know, how important stormwater runoff is and how we're regulating that not only within our subdivisions, but also within our businesses itself. Many of the board members that were on the board here within the last year, we did several ordinance changes that updated our ordinances in regards to stormwater master planning. And so that's only impacted then that stormwater master planning and keeping our code up to date and in compliance with our MS4 permitting. We're also updating our mapping in regards to GIS technology. So you'll see rolling out on our website, our zoning map being updated, our subdivision map being updated, working with the Parks and Recreation Department and our mapping division with updating their mapping on trails, their parks, and any assistance that we can do, but also in regards to our public works utility maps. We have a Trimble device which ties into a global positioning system. So when our public works folks go out and they inspect water meters, they'll actually be tying it to a global positioning system. So we'll improve not only our mapping system, but also tying down where water meters are, fire hydrants are, so that we know exactly pinpoint where all of our utilities are from a mapping standpoint. So all of our public works maintenance folks actually have tablets that they operate off. No longer do we operate on the old paper system on a work order system. They all operate off a tablet system. So when they get assigned a work order, they report the completion of that work order on a tablet system that goes back to the public works assistant and uploads into the system and reports, the completion of that work order system. Some of the items that we completed within the last year or so is updating our city standards for developers. And when I talk about that is, improving the standards that go into street improvements when the street is being constructed within a new subdivision, the base construction of that street, the asphalt that's used, the curb that's used to basically improve the how long the street will last as far as the city. Making sure that we're improving those standards, improving that base. And also the Neptune system as far as the water meters. Many of you, through the budgeting process, we read our water meters remotely now. 95% of the water meters throughout the city are read remotely. We don't have somebody that drives through the city and read water meters. We actually have antennas on our water towers that can read them remotely, that can actually read them up to the minute. So not only do we save time for our workers having to go out and read the water meters, but actually our utility billing can read them here in the office, so that if somebody needs a shut-off, right now, we can actually provide that information for them. If they're having a problem with a leaking toilet or a problem with a pool or anything like that, we can give them that kind of documentation as well. So that's, again, just using technology to aid in our citizens. One of the challenges, though, that we're facing right now is we're short 3 public works maintenance workers. We're working with the administration right now on how do we address, hiring people. We only have 6 positions in public works maintenance. We're down 3 people right now. So that's a challenge for us.
All right, I'll go ahead and go next.
Just don't push the button.
Yeah. A few of the goals that we have set within our department for this year is one is the creation of a Friends of the Park program. Now, Mayor, I'm sure you were familiar with when we had one, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think Bob Headley was on that group. And they were predominantly fundraising for park amenities, park facilities, things of that nature. In fact, the skate park was an amenity that was funded through the Friends of the Park program. Now, what we're planning on doing does have a fundraising component to it when that need arises, but ultimately, what we want to do with the Friends of the Park program is is get the community more involved in parks and recreation, get them more engaged, utilize them to help champion and promote park and rec programming, activities, special events. But also with that is by signing on as a Friends of the Park member, there's obviously some perks that will come with that a resident would receive. But it's also ultimately having a pool of citizens that we can utilize for assistance, volunteer assistance with special events, programs, youth leagues, things of that nature, but also volunteer assistance with any park cleanups, taking care of our landscaping beds, whether that's planting flowers or replenishing mulch or things of that nature. And ultimately kind of providing an opportunity for citizens to be more engaged. I guess more of a healthy lifestyle, but really provide a sense of ownership, for their parks. So that's something that we plan on rolling out this year. Part of that program is a program called Did You Know? And this is more of kind of a quantitative metric type system to where we look at data, whether that's number of kids registered in a program or number of trees we planted in a certain park for a given year, and then put information to that shows for, every kid that was registered, this is what benefits came of that. For every tree planted, this is what benefits came from that, whether that's physical or mental health, whether that's an economic benefit to the community, whether that's a conservation benefit to the community. Because with this, we are trying to promote the benefits of parks and recreation and what people can get out of that. Another thing is we are developing a trails maintenance plan. Over the last several years, we've constructed quite a few trails and sidewalks in the community. And that endeavor was basically spawned from the past couple of citizen surveys, which has consistently shown us that this community wants pedestrian connectivity. They want to be able to walk, bike safely from point A to point B. And honestly, it's not real surprising. Walking is the #1 recreational activity in the nation. And the reasons for that is it's regardless of your physical ability, your economic status, anybody can walk, or anybody can use our walking trails to jog or to bike or to walk their dog or access it with a wheelchair and things of that nature. There's no cost. You don't have to have some tremendous athletic ability like some of your specialized sports, or have deep pockets to play golf 5 times a week like Mark does. But anyway, I'm kidding. I just making sure you're paying attention. But anyway, part of the trails plan is following, in essence, our capital improvements plan, which is predominantly trail projects. And obviously, we've got a 50-cent sales tax in place that's funding trails and other park improvements. And most of the projects in our CIP are related to trails. So with that, we want a plan that's going to outline not only the construction of trails as far as depth, width, cross-section, how they are constructed, but also how they're routed throughout the community, trailhead parking. We're looking at pedestrian bridges, things of that nature, and try to have a standard and plan as we construct future trails that were consistent across the board. This also includes signage and making sure, whether it's at the entrance of a trailhead or somewhere in the middle of the trail or at a pedestrian bridge, that we've got consistent signage that is fluent across the board with font, color, design, and material that it's made out of. But then also on the short-term side, it's your routine maintenance and making sure that we have a protocol for any type of patching or milling or overlay, mowing on either side of the trail, and things of that nature. So that's another plan that the department is working on. And then lastly, Mark had mentioned it, is one of the goals was to get the RFQ advertised for the city comprehensive plan and Park Trails master plan, which it is. So, does anybody have any questions on that?
Mark would like the record to reflect he's more of a water person than a golf course person.
I was gonna ask, which part were you kidding on, the deep pockets or golf 5-day? Just to clarify.
Shannon, how often are the trails inspected?
Well, we actually, at least during the busy season, have guys down there weekly because on most of our trails, we at a minimum have to mow 3 feet on either side of the trail. In some areas, we're mowing more. So part of that is inspecting the trail. More often than not, if there's clippings or leaves on it, we're blowing it off. So we're trying to do a visual inspection almost weekly out there during the busy season. The off season, which is basically late October through middle of March, we're not out there as frequently, but yeah, it's similar to our playgrounds in that they go through safety inspections, whether that's the surface material or the structures themselves. We're at a minimum out there at least a week.
And I think one of the longer term goals too is trying to treat it more like we do sidewalks and roads and that kind of thing. So as Shannon and the Parks Board try to budget out funds, we build more trails, that's great, but then we'll have to do maintenance to those trails, which in the past, we didn't really have enough trails for that to matter. But as we build that inventory up, we have to worry about the maintenance side of it. So it's kind of giving them a mechanism to where we kind of have that inventory and a rating system or something to where we can plan going forward with that. It's the downside, I guess, of expanding the trail system.
More maintenance.
Go and maintain it then.
Guess it's my turn, and I get to talk about the really fun stuff. Utility billing, finance, and taxes. First, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve as the finance director. I do love the job and the city organization. It's just a wonderful place to work, so I do appreciate that. To piggyback off of Mark, the utility billing department has continued to focus on upgrading its technology. So the two goals that we had for the I believe for several years, but what we're focusing on is increasing the number of citizens who are satisfied with their interaction with the city and diversifying the general fund revenue away from the property tax. What we've tried to do with utility billing is increase the number of payment options that people have. That way they can just pay their bill, decrease the time that staff has to, we used to, it seemed like answer phone calls all the time with people calling in with their credit card. Now, we have expanded the number of payment options to include the automated payment line, the text-to-pay, and a mobile app that is directly linked to the customer's account. So we've seen over the last 2 years, I believe the payments through the website was approximately $1,800 a month. This last spring, we had our highest number, which was 3,000 payment transactions in 1 month. And keep in mind, we have about 6,000 customer accounts with the utility department. In addition, Mark mentioned the Neptune fixed-base water meter reading system, which allows us real-time access to some of the customers' accounts. So at City Hall, when they call in, we can try to give them data regarding their account, and we can look at that without having to go to the Community Development and Public Works and try to send someone out, take a look. We at least have quite a bit of information that can help with billing, troubleshooting, and the account analysis. And finally, this year, we've also, with utility billing, implemented the electronic document management system, which over the last 8 months, we've scanned all of the user agreements and their photo IDs of the customers in our system. So now we have the documents electronically from the customer's account, and we can look that up directly from the Encode software that we have. In the finance department, is down to me. We're currently looking for an accountant. So we have, over the last 6 months, looked at some of the different alternate funding mechanism or revenue sources. One of those was the local use tax, and I've mentioned that before, but that would be specifically a way to fund some additional police personnel that we spoke about during the budget process through last year. And we have looked at some plans, and we do have some ballot language that could be used for a future election if that were a direction that the board would like to move forward with. Moving forward, some of the big projects that we have, as you know, there's the police station, but you know, you have to have a way to fund that. So we've been working with our bond counsel, the city's financial advisor, and we're trying to come up with the best way to approach that, given the economic times that we have, as well as the financial markets just seem to be going. Interest rates keep going up, which of course affects the amount that you can borrow and that you have to pay over time. So in the near future, I imagine that we'll have a recommendation and a plan to move forward with that by the end of this year to pay for that. We've also been looking at some of the, you know, we've been trying to upgrade some of our processes with some of the budget forecasting, as well as some of the budget software that we have. That'll be something that we look forward to working on as we refill some of the staffing that we have in the department. So that's all that I had, and again, thank you for the opportunity.
Am I missing something? You're giving me a look.
Nope, anything else?
No, I think that was it. Like I said, if nothing else, it's a good opportunity just to let you all know kind of some of the things that all of the departments have been working on. Because I know it's very easy for us, like day in and day out, we're just doing that kind of thing, and sometimes maybe think that people know what we're doing, but that's not always the case. So it's kind of a good opportunity to get that out there and kind of let you see some of those big items that we've been working on. And obviously, all of these things don't happen unless you guys fund them in the budget. So thank you for that. I think all of the departments have made a lot of strides here over the last few years to kind of bring everything up to another level. Because reality is, even though we're a city, we're competing against other cities, and whether it's for employees or businesses or anything like that. So we've got to continue to up our game with all of these and all these departments. So thank you.
Do we
There are no questions, Mr. Mayor.
damn, no questions? We're that
You were that clear.
Okay. None at all.
None.
Any comments that can be repeated?
No comments.
No. Yeah. All right. Well, if no one has anything else, I think, you know, everyone had great ideas, and I think this will help us moving forward. And if no one has anything else, we will adjourn. Thanks, everyone.